So Dan, yesterday we had the coach here with us, and he had to fly back to get back to football practice. The guy's got football practice, so we can't keep coach in town forever. But
he also had his 16-year-old daughter in charge of in the house with all 3 kids. They left him for 24 hours with their 16-year-old daughter in charge, so they were a little worried about that.
Can you talk about what his reaction to watching the film with the audience was last night?
Yeah, he. Apparently it's just me. I'm the problem. He was, you know, it was the most emotional I've ever seen him be watching it with a larger crowd, and I think also it's been enough. There's been enough of time from him away from Manassas that there was a reminder, an emotional reminder of what an important part of his life that was. We didn't know going into the film that this would be his last year. It was kind of revealed to us during practice that it's not a scene in the film because it didn't really play into the narrative. But so we ended up kind of capturing a specific moment in his life, and I think seeing it last night like that was very emotional for him.
He had said early on that he thought it would be nice when we first arrived in Memphis for the kids to have somewhat of almost like a video yearbook of sorts. And I think watching it last night and having had some distance from it, he actually was able to see a nice reminder of this moment in time and the relationships that were built and formed during his time at Manassas. So, like Dan said, that was probably the most emotional we had seen him probably since the hug with OC at the end of the film.
He also said it was very strange to see. He said he needed to lose some weight, and it was scary to see that many chins up on a big screen. That was actually the first thing he said.
And I guess as a follow-up to that, I know that the other players have seen the film, Chavis, OC, and Money. Can you talk about their responses to the film?
OC?
You saw it with OC, yeah. I actually went back and showed it to OC. I was the first person to really get a chance to let him see it. And at first he was kind of indifferent, it seemed like, and I was like, oh man, he's not feeling this at all. And then I had to go outside to take a phone call, and I came back in about 10 minutes later, and he had taken my seat, and he was about 2 inches away from the television, just leaning in, glued into it. And by the end of it, he just couldn't have been happier with the way it had turned out. And he's a man of few words, but he was like, it's good. So he said we got it right, so that's what more can you ask for?
Chavis and Money got an opportunity to see it at South by Southwest, and we had finished the film like 2 days prior to the festival, so we didn't actually have a chance to screen it for them until they arrived in Austin, and we screened it for them on a computer, on a laptop, like an hour before we screened it for the public. But so prior to that, we called them and had like long phone conversations and went through the film beat by beat with them, just to kind of emotionally prepare them for what they were going to see.
And how people reacted to it, just having showed it to a few like friends and stuff, like saying like, hey, people laugh at this, and you might not find it funny, but you know, they're not necessarily laughing at you, they're laughing because they can relate to the experience. And, but yeah, then we showed them the film in Austin.
I think Money was by far our biggest concern in the sense that he's very self-critical, and
he's also extremely sensitive.
Very sensitive. Oh, yeah. Chavis is very sensitive as well. Yeah. All in all, I think. I mean, the best way to put it, I think, is he was very pleased with the film, but I think he was just blown away by the fact that it was an actual movie, and I think he said to you that he doesn't even remember that like half of the moments that actually we captured on screen. He was like, "You guys were there for that? I don't even remember that. How do you guys know?" So he seemed to be very pleased.
Yeah, I was gonna say Chavis like watched like the first half hour and he's like, "Oh, whatever. That was my life. I said it. It's good." And then when he saw it with the crowd, he was actually really moved, and I think he enjoyed the process.
Take some questions, you sir.
Bill Courtney was identified as a volunteer coach, and there were a couple other coaches identified as volunteer coaches. Was there a head coach, or was Bill the head coach?
Bill is is basically the head coach, and that we try to show our experience. He coaches the offense, the defense. It's his, schemes, everything about it. I mean, he's the one who leads the practices. He is doing all that. Technically, he can't be the head coach on paper, and so it has to be a faculty member at the school. So there is a head coach who was a PE teacher, but he didn't have that much football knowledge. He was more just there to kind of allow the program to exist. They had kind of teamed up, and he said, as long as you're here, I'll be here with you and facilitate it so this can happen.
Question here.
You followed three of the players, OC, Chavez, and Money. Were there any other players you followed that ended up on the cutting room floor, and how did you decide to focus on those three?
She asked. There was three players on the team that we followed, and she was wondering if there was any others that ended up on the cutting room floor, people that we followed that didn't end up making the film. There were two others, Joaquin and a kid whose nickname was Little Juju. Little Juju's, he had just transferred there to play. He'd never played football before, and he came for his senior year just to play football in hopes of getting a scholarship, because he knew OC would be getting a lot of attention. He was amazing and fun. And we thought, that would be an interesting storyline. Somebody who, coming into this experience, so it would be able to see it through his eyes. But, it just didn't seem to work when we cut it in. Joaquin was amazingly compelling. He was in 19 foster homes in 4 years, and he turned 18, and the foster system kicked him out. And so he was literally at a homeless shelter, and he called Bill the summer before senior year, and he said, I don't have a place to live. So he ended up moving in with one of the coaches. Again, amazingly compelling, but when TJ and I work in terms of creating narrative, we start with themes. And taking like many notes while we're watching the footage, and we kind of come up with the themes that we're going to work from, and then try to build our narrative around those themes. So each scene, if it's not speaking specifically to those themes, and his storyline didn't seem to kind of fall in. I mean, every kid, Bill is kind of frequently says there's a story under every helmet. And I mean, so many of these kids, we could have done probably a film just on them. But these were the three.
5-hour film. Yeah.
And we had 500 hours of footage, so it was a beast of an edit. But these were the three that really. It also helped that their storylines interconnected. Chavis interrupted Money's life in a way. He also interrupted the team's life. Money and OC were good friends. It doesn't maybe come out as much across in the film, but they have an interesting kind of
they kind of have like a dichotomy of sorts where Money is the gifted academic and OC is the gifted athlete, and yet OC gets a lot of the support. Like a lot of the families come to support OC to help him get to get him to college. And through the program, a lot of people are supporting Money, but he fiscally couldn't get to college. But because he wasn't gifted as an athlete, he wasn't getting as much support as OC. So like we loved that idea of being able to kind of compare and contrast between the two trajectories of the kids. And so between those three player athletes, we were able to stick to a tighter narrative throughout the course of cutting.